Hey, Grapes, what's up? Well, that, wow, that was quick. And today I'm gonna finally do a review on The Handmaid's Tale Season 1, which won an Emmy for Outstanding Drama Series. I was pretty surprised that it won, to be honest, so I told myself to watch it. The show is created by Bruce Miller and it stars Elizabeth Moss, which you may know her from Mad Men as Peggy Olson. Anyway, the pilot episode Offred is basically an introduction to the world where the show takes place in, aka Gilead. It's basically in the USA but in a dystopian future where a lot of women are infertile. So the government, or whoever it was, captured a lot of fertile women and forced them to bear children from the husband of their infertile wives. And there were also people like Martha's, Eyes, and a bunch of others, which reminds me of those 19th century Catholic Gothic traditions. People say things like, praised be, or blessed be the fruit. And also, unfortunately, in Gilead, woman doesn't enjoy rights. And that is going to be a really terrible thing. And basically, June and her husband and her daughter tried to escape USA/Gilead, but unfortunately, June got captured and now she's Offred. She's a handmaid of a commander called Mr. Fred Waterford. And in the same house, there's also a driver called Nick who acted weirdly and started watching Offred for some reason. And Offred also had a partner called Offglen, another handmaid. At first, Offred hated Offglen, but soon Offglen opened up to Offred, and they started sharing secrets. Yes, the show gets really jumpy at times because it keeps having flashbacks, and sometimes it's a little bit too dramatic. Like it tries to be angry and triggering, but it feels a little bit forced, just a little bit. But overall, it's a very promising pilot episode. The writing is still qualifying, and the story is good at building a very dark and depressing dystopian world. On episode 2, Birthday, the show doesn't slow down. There are a handful of intriguing moments on this episode. First of all, we have Janine, aka Off Warren's birthday. Not birthday, more like birthday. You know, like when you give birth to a child, instead of you celebrating an anniversary of your own birth. Birthday, 2 words. Then Commander Waterford told Offred to meet him alone, which is against the rules, so it's kind of interesting where the show is going. And Offglen told Offred about the Handmaid's secret network and the secret spies, and it makes the show way more mysterious than I have anticipated. The ending is great. It gets very elated at first, and I knew something was about to going to happen. What was I saying? Something wrong was going to happen, and then snap! Something wrong actually happened. It's predictable, but it's still great. Overall, it's a good episode, pretty solid. The whole Scrabble thing really got me interested because I still don't know what's going on with the spies and with the commander, with the Scrabble game, with Offglen, but I guess we'll see. It's like something wrong is happening in the midst of a very depressing dystopian future, which makes for a really intriguing story. Also, very intriguing storylines as well. Moving on to episode 3, Late, which is a bit of a high point for the season. Tons of things happened in this episode, and all of them are emotional and tragic, because that's how basically the show feels. First, the flashbacks are insane. Oh my gosh. There's this scene where the police are fighting the protests, and the people were protesting, and suddenly the police or the army started firing guns and firing at people, and they started throwing bombs and grenades and shit. It's crazy. Like, people are actually dying. Oh my gosh. And in the present day, after the previous episode's mysterious ending, we have an explanation for that. And it's sad. It really is. Oh my gosh. And what happened to June or Offred in the last scene was also kind of tragic. And overall, I'm really hooked by the story, and the drama really builds up. Then it's episode 4, Nolit, Nolite te bastardis carbondorum. I don't speak Latin. Anyway, yeah. After last episode's tragedies, we have more insight on why Fred Waterford is being so strangely nice, and what happened before June, and we also get to learn more about how June and Moira, her old friend, wanted to escape, and how did it end up. It's a surprisingly decent episode. It's actually kind of good because it gives hope. And whenever the show gives us a hopeful scene, it's a good feeling because the story itself is so hopeless. So when there is hope, it's like a gap between the dark clouds, a gap of light between the dark clouds, breaking into the clouds, And I also like how the driver, Nick, the commander, and the doctor were low-key trying to help June. I think that's very warm. But the doctor is a little bit creepy, though. And the flashbacks never bore me. They are suspenseful and powerful. Alright, I'll stop eating. My gosh. You'll see that in the gag reel, on the blooper reel. Oh my gosh. Over to episode 5, Faithful. On this episode, in the full scale, it really didn't do much, but it still has some compelling character developments and well-written scenes. Before, the commander seems like he's going to be a great person because he liked chatting with June and he defied a couple of rules, but on this episode, more of him is revealed. And I also think that the relationship build-up between June and Nick is getting a little bit weird, but it's also a good storyline, and the ending is one of the most daring and bold scenes of the show. Not only did Elizabeth Moss had a nude scene, the characters are also doing very, very risky things. And then it's episode 6, A Woman's Place. Commander Fred Waterford had invited Mexican delegates to talk trade and have a dinner party. And some awkward things happened that built quite some tension. But ultimately the focus of this episode isn't really on the Mexican delegates trading with Gilead, the world of Handmaid's Tale, but it's more like about how the Mexican ambassadors may be able to make a positive change. And quite a few interesting things have happened on this episode, so I decide to give a spoiler alert. Just wait. First of all, we have the scene where Mrs. Castillo, the Mexican ambassador, questioned June on her life as a handmaid in front of a bunch of commanders and delegates. And of course, June lied and said how she chose to be a handmaid and she was really happy about it. But at the end of this episode, June told Mrs. Castillo that she had lied and being handmaid sucks. They get punished, they get raped, and then Mrs. Castillo apologized and said she couldn't really do anything to help her. But Mrs. Castillo's assistant suddenly talked to June in discreet, telling her that he wanted to help and that June's husband, Luke, was alive. Oh my gosh. And that is a very hopeful ending to a very dystopian episode, and I love it. All of a sudden, this random guy somehow knew June's real name and her husband's real name and everything and wanted to help June. Also, we see a lot of Serena Joy and Fred Waterford flashbacks on this episode, and now we know that they are more powerful and important than we see them at the start. Then the story progresses on to episode 7, The Other Side, and the episode should be titled Pop In, 6 Bullets, Shoot. Just a thought, it would be a cool episode title. Pop In, 6 Bullets, Shoot. Anyway, this episode is a Luke episode. It is about what happened after the scene right at the start of the pilot episode in Luke's perspective. And that's why this episode is a very special episode. And I feel like some people don't like this episode because it's all about Luke, but in my opinion, this episode is really, really underrated. I have invested in June and Luke's character for a while now. Actually, Luke wasn't really that memorable of a character, but he's June's husband. I'm worried about him too. Anyway, not much happened on this episode, but it shows us what it's like not live under the radar in the new country of Gilead. And that's why it feels so different and new. And it's a refreshing episode because we really do need a break from all those hopeless and sad and tragic scenes. On episode 8, Jezebels, Commander Fred Waterford smuggled June into an 18-plus adult bar and hotel, which is illegal, but who fucking cares? There are some interesting moments in this episode, because now we're seeing more of Gilead and we're not always stuck in that freaking house. And there are some secrets revealed as well, which is pretty cool. But overall, this episode might be the least impressive episode of the season. Not that it's bad, but it just doesn't have the excitement factor much as the others. And the plot is simpler and more predictable than any other Handmaid's Tale episodes so far. On to episode 9, The Bridge. Janine gave her baby to the Warren family and she was going to move into a new family. One sec. But Janine wasn't too happy about that, and also June wanted to help Mayday, a secret rebellion organization of handmaids. Quite a number of things happened on this episode, and the last scene was really dramatic and heartbreaking, but it's also kinda predictable in some levels. Don't hate me, please. So I am giving a spoiler alert. Ha! And I'm gonna continue eating. So first of all, apparently one of the handmaids, Alma, was in Mayday, and she told June to get this package back at Jezebel's. So June tricked Fred to go back to the Jezebel's on a very last-minute trip. That just happened last episode, and now it's happening again. Oh my gosh, it's so last minute it feels a bit repetitive. But at the end, June didn't get the package, but instead argued with Moira. Then there's the scene towards the end where Janine took back her baby and wanted to jump off the bridge with the baby. Everyone was there, watching. June made it over there and managed to convince Janine not to kill the baby, but Janine jumped at the end, which is a bit predictable, but also extremely tragic. Not that it's bad, but I was like, yep, I knew it. Janine's gonna give Alfred, or June, the baby, and she's gonna jump. Yep. Like, no way the show is just gonna end it there, with Janine just, and the baby staying alive. Like, one good thing must happen, and then another bad thing must happen. Like, it has to be bittersweet. Someone had to die. And the ending is really nice too. Moira killed someone and escaped from Jezebel's in a very smooth and ambiguous way, instead of being too dramatic. At last, it's episode 10, Night, the season finale. This episode is really dramatic and powerful in a lot of scenes, but also tense and suspenseful. Nothing too out of the expectation. Nothing too off the wall or insane, but it's a well-written and solid season finale that I absolutely love. I'm giving a spoiler alert. So, Serena Joy found out about the hidden relationship between Fred and June, and she was really angry. But also, June was pregnant, so it's still good news. What's really shocking, however, is that turns out Janine was still alive, and all the handmaids are gathered together by Aunt Lydia to stone her to death, because in the law, harming a baby will result in death by stoning. And that's really shocking at first. Even Aunt Lydia hated it, but she knew that it had to happen. But when Aunt Lydia blew the whistle and told the girls to start throwing the stones, the girls didn't, and one by one they dropped the rock on the ground and apologized, and that is really cool. But of course, because of that, all handmaids will be punished, and I guess that is the big cliffhanger of the season. Overall, this is a fantastic TV season that exceeded my expectations. Bruce Miller really captured the essence from the book and made it into a wonderful TV show that's both depressing and hopeful. And it also says a lot about the political situation right now in the world, and that's why it's so relatable in some levels. The acting performances are remarkable. Elizabeth Moss is great, as always. The same for actresses for Aunt Lydia and Janine. Oh my gosh, I really didn't expect their acting performances to be this good. And the character of Aunt Lydia is incredibly intriguing, because at first I thought she's gonna be the big villain. But then in the second half of the show, we see her kind and loving side, and we see how much she actually cares about the handmaids. So Aunt Lydia is more like a mother of all the handmaids, and that's a really special character. And also, I would love to point out that I really appreciate how The Handmaid's Tale, the TV show, uses many different camera angles and movements and camera techniques, especially the depth of view techniques that is very, very commonly and frequently used in the TV show. And I also like how the camera always focuses on Elizabeth Moss, aka June's face. You know, it's just her face all the time to show her emotions, her reactions, and using her face to reflect the world around her, the entire Gilead. And that is really brilliant. But what I don't like about The Handmaid's Tale is that we don't see enough of bad things, to be honest. In the beginning, it's insanely dystopian, but later on, when we take a closer look, it's not really that bad. But I love how the show reveals a little bit more every episode, and that's why every single episodes in the season are also entertaining and interesting. The worst is episode 8, Jezebels, and the best is episode 10, Night. I'm saying The Handmaid's Tale is definitely worth watching, and I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. So, have you watched The Handmaid's Tale Season 1 from 1 to 10? How much would you rate it? Like if you like it, and subscribe if you want more. Sorry, I'm tired.